بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين ما بعد. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. حياكم الله, or should I say to my brother, كيف حالك or شلونك? Which one you prefer, حبيبنا?
It's all good to me. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Allah يبارك فيك. So today's live stream, we're joined by our noble brother, and once again, he doesn't need any introduction considering he had a very heated debate with our brother Daniel Haqiqatjou. And today is a post-debate analysis and to discuss Iraq and Iraq al-Habib regarding the crimes of Iran that they perpetrate in our beloved Iraq. And once again, this war happened a very long time ago, 20 years ago. Many people who were born probably in the 2000s weren't aware what the crime or the crimes that Iran committed. And now that what we're seeing transpire in Palestine Muhtal, it's now come to the forefront with our brother Tallha engaging with Daniel Haqiqatjou. So first of all, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hayyakum Allah.
So, Brother Talha, give us a bit of background about yourself first and foremost. Introduce yourself to our audience. Where you come into this. I know you're Iraqi. Proud Iraqi. Walillah alhamd. So, just introduce yourself to our viewers, and we'll gradually get into what we need to discuss. Bismillah.
Inshallah ta'ala. So, my background is in actually military science. I hold a PhD in strategy and security, and I specialize in military operations. And I did my PhD thesis actually on the Iran-Iraq war. So it's a highly pertinent and relevant topic to today's issues. If you want to understand the modern Middle East, if you want to understand Iran and its actions and its role in the Middle East, how it interfaces with Israel, how it interfaces with the so-called, great Satan, Shaitan al-Akbar, as they call it, the United States of America. Look no further than the Iran-Iraq war. Now, while I specialized in the military aspects of that war, the political aspects are closely intertwined. So, as a military historian, I had to look into not only what happened on the field, I also had to understand what happened in the background between, for example, at the highest levels of government, whether it was with Saddam Hussein, the former Iraqi leader, up until 2003, or indeed with so-called Ayatollah Khomeini of the Iranian regime, who founded the, again, so-called Islamic Republic of Iran in 1979. So that's my academic background. I've been in the media and the mainstream media for a long time now, too long.
How long? How long
And
exactly? How long exactly, Talha?
I would say it's almost circling in and around the media for about over 15 years.
Wow.
So that was all based upon my expertise in the Middle East, its politics, its military issues, its strategic implications, particularly insofar as the great powers are concerned, especially the United States, its satellite allies in the region, particularly Israel. All of that attracted mainstream media attention, mainstream and otherwise, I should say. Actually, it's not just the mainstream media that I've spoken on. In fact, Daniel will like this one. I've even spoken on Press TV, which is a well-known.
You can't say that you're not sectarian then, right?
Well, it's not a case of sectarianism or anything like that, but I've always had a long-standing policy, and that is any outlet that won't censor what I'm going to say, I'll write for them and I'll speak on their programs, which is actually why I frequently prefer live discussions, particularly when dealing with an actor like Press TV, because you never know how they're going to edit you in the edit room. So you have to be very careful. And in live settings, you have ample opportunity to express and put forward your point of view, and to sometimes have heated debates, not only with people like Daniel. Daniel, to be honest with you, and in 6 months ago, I would have said with all due respect, but I have no respect for that boy anymore. But I've had he's not on my level. The only reason why I accepted that debate was because of the sheer amount of tadlil that he was engaged in, misguiding people by the hundreds of thousands, particularly as it pertains to Iraq and Syria, and other lesser-known issues, which I unfortunately didn't have the opportunity to discuss. Can you hear me?
Oh yeah, I'm nodding my head. I'm paying attention.
I think there's a sound issue.
You lost me, Tallha. You lost me. I'm still here. Hello. He's paused.
Don't worry.
Yeah, no, Tallha, you paused there for a second. Hello, salam alaikum. Oh, Tallha's frozen. Oh, okay, Tallha. We were just in the momentum there.
Am I back
Tallha,
online?
you're back on now. You were gone for a bit. Are you okay? You there? Can you hear me?
Just a second. I think there's a technical issue.
Okay, just let me know because I can hear you now. You're back. I don't know. Is that some technical issue? I think.
I still can't hear you if you can hear me.
I can hear you. I don't know about myself. I don't know what's happened. It was perfectly fine just a second ago. Hold on.
Just a moment, brother.
Yeah, I'm
me
here.
see
I'm
what's
here.
going on here.
Yeah. Don't worry. I'm here. Okay. Okay. Hold on. Let me just send a text. Can hold on? Can you hear me, audience? Can you hear me? Because I'm fine. I can see Talha moving, but he can't see me. Hello? I think he's lost me. Hold on, let me send him a text. Just stay on, brothers. Oh, you can hear
Try
me.
again?
Can you hear me? Talha. I don't know what's happened.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah. We can hear you both.
I can't hear you at all.
You can't hear me. Hold on. The Iranian regime is getting involved in this. They're messing with the
I
wires.
can't hear you. Can you hear me?
We can hear Brother Hajji, but not Talha. Hold on. I'm sending you a text. Hold on. Ajib. I can hear you. I've just sent you a text. Look at your phone. He can't hear me though. Yeah, but he can't hear me. That's the worrying thing. He can't hear me. Check your mic. But he can't hear me. Ajib. Hold on, brothers and sisters. We'll sort this out. I can't hear you. All right, hold on. He can't hear me. Hold on. Talha, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Sahib al-Zaman is doing something to it. Talha, can you hear me now? Hold on. Well, I'll start. Hold on. Hello, Talha. I can. My mic's fine now. Talha's mic's completely gone. You wanna reset it and come
Still
back?
can't hear you.
I don't know what's happened. I don't know. They can hear me. Hold on.
Shall we leave and come back?
Yeah. You come back.
Let
You
me
leave
leave and come back and see if that works.
Yeah. It was just getting good. All right, just for your information, behind me is just a sample of my Shi'i books, right? So this is just a sample of the Shi'i books that I've got. So yeah, I'll put my mic back on. All right. I only done it on this occasion. I never show my books, to be honest. I'm going to my settings now. Audio. Yeah. So I'm definitely working. It's definitely working for me. Yeah, he's gonna reboot. He says, and he's gonna come back. Okay. Yeah, so that was interesting. Okay, so here a book of Ayatollah Khomeini, and just to show you, this is a book from Iran, as you can see. Hold on. Where is he? You can see his photo in just a sec. Wow, look who's there. straight in front. There you go. Ugh. Ugh. Oof, oof, oof. It's just getting interesting as well. It'll come back. It'll come back. It'll come back. Oof. Okay, he's just rebooting and he'll be back. Okay, so yeah, if anyone hasn't watched my original video, I think I recorded it about 3 days ago now. So yeah, go check that out. It's just a response to our brother Daniel, and once again, he is our brother, and we have to advise each other. We have to respond in a way that we come to a common ground. He might not agree with us, but ultimately we have the right to have this open based on the fact that this debate was public. So don't worry, this ain't a cancel um, Daniel's or cancel Daniel, or I'm warning against him and not watch his videos. Not far from it. So being in Kareem, we're hopeful that he would watch the video, and if he agrees, then and comes out and clarifies. Even if he disagrees with me, it's fine. But it's best that we have some sort of response, right? Because it's not correct. He's Brother Talha has just sent me a text and said that please apologize to your audience. I'm moving as fast as I can on my behalf. I mean, so he'll be back. He'll be back. He'll be back. So bear with us. We've got plenty of time. You could just relax and just look at me. It's funny. So what I can do is I could show you an evidence, right? Um, which would be very interesting to you. With al shara'i. Let me get the al shara'i here, just to show you how they have issues with Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. So hold on. So this is a book by As-Saduq, right? So as you can see by the bookmarks, loads of stuff here. So we'll find that reference. Okay, he'll be back. I'll let you know when he's back, but I'll keep you guys entertained as best as I can. There. So here we got Il Shara'a. Okay, this is from Saduq, and it says, now remember they attribute Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah and they label us Nawasib. You know that. So here's the reference here. So just interested. So he said that Abi Abdullah was asked, "Ma taqulu fi qatl al-nawasib?" What do you say about killing the Nawasib? Right, killing the Nawasib. All right, and Abi Abdullah responded by saying, "Halal al-dam." Their blood is halal. Nawasib, halal al-dam. But he said, "I fear for you." So if you've got the ability, right, put a wall over him. So basically, he goes, "I fear for you." He goes, "Halal al-dam," but I fear for you. So what you do is, if you want to kill him, throw a wall over him, right, and perhaps there's no witnesses. So if you're able to do it, do it. This is the extent, right? And then he says, "Qultu fama tara fi malihi." What do you say? So once you kill him, right, you threw the wall on him, so no one can see if there's no witnesses around, right? Do it. And then, what do you say? Then they asked him, "What do you say about his wife? I mean, about his wife. Sorry, not his wife. Stuff for a while. Someone heard muta and I started thinking about wives. Ma tara fi malihi." And then he said, "Do what you want with it." There you go. There's a reference there, right there. So this is the level. And then when we get into what Brother Talha would explain regarding the crimes of Iran in Iraq and in Syria, you would see that they're only acting upon texts that instruct them because they see as Nawasib, Ya Tharat al Hussein, and revenge for Hussein, even though Hussein was killed and martyred 1200 years ago. But we bear the brunt. And there's various riwayats that they have regarding the offspring of those who killed Hussein. The Mahdi is going to kill them, and it's subhanallah al-azim. And this is, oh, he's back. He's back. He's back. He's back. He's back. Okay, can you hear me now?
I can hear you loud and clear now. I have no idea what went on there.
Ali Muhammad. Okay.
Apologies
So,
to you and the audience.
No, 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 no. Let you better speak. So I was just as you were mentioning Khomeini. As you know, I get my books from Iran and Lebanon. So I've got your favorite person here, your pal here. You know. So yeah. So Habibi, just to summarize, and again for the audience, Brother Talha
Yeah.
who joined late, Brother Talha, Walillah alhamd, is an expert in military strategy. Did I hear that correctly, Brother Talha?
It's part of it, yeah, but military science as a whole. Yeah.
Military science, and he's
Yeah.
been on various, and I followed Brother Talha even before I was Bro Hajji. So you were on the Middle Eastern Eye and various other
Yeah.
media channels. Now, the topic at hand, and
Yes.
its alliances with Iran. So what I want from you, Brother Talha, because ultimately we're here to learn from you, explain or educate us regarding Iran's role in the Middle East post Shah, and why you have a gripe against Iran. And again, are you a Ba'athist first and foremost? Are you an Arab nationalist? Because I need to get that out there.
No, absolutely not. I mean,
You
this
sure?
was a straw man. I am absolutely sure. Yeah, this is a straw man that Daniel put out there, as is his usual fashion. He couldn't fight me on the facts, so he decided to attempt to character assassinate me. I'm well known for my political stances and opinions. I've been cancelled, I think, 5 times for supporting various Muslim causes. So across the world, not even Arab, just Arab ones. In fact, most of them weren't even Arab ones.
Wow. And
The
what about
last,
your
yeah.
position regarding Saddam? Because I want to get that out there before we get into the history. Saddam Hussein, you are a Qawmi Ba'athist. You love Saddam. Is there any truth to this?
So what I said about Saddam Hussein was actually quite clear, and he
Allah
even
yarhamu.
actually put up the tweet.
Allah yarhamu. Allah
Yeah, yeah.
yarhamu.
I say that as well. Yeah, and by the way, and I mentioned this to Daniel during the debate. Uh, the Ba'athist regime tortured my father. And I
Wow.
even said to him, I have this British accent as a result. It's no accident that I'm here. There's a very particular reason why
Wow.
I'm here.
Wow.
So there's no love lost between me and the Ba'athists, for example. Um,
SubhanAllah.
but but and Daniel again brought up the tweet and quickly brushed over it. Uh, he said, the tweet that I wrote was, "You've got to hand it to Saddam." And yes, if you face death in the way that he did, even if Daniel faced death in the way that he did, yeah, I would say you've got to hand it to Daniel. Yeah, it's worthy of respect, whether whether you like him or not, whether you agree with his policies or not. And I'm one of those who, whose family strongly disagreed with his policies to the point where we were no longer welcome in our own country, right?
Wallah.
Um,
SubhanAllah.
but Saddam Hussein, and this is indisputable, he was by far and away significantly better than the Iranian puppets that we now have ruling Iraq today, and who have been ruling us since 2003, and who, despite their claims to be, part of some sort of, resistance or some other nonsense, they actually came in on the backs of American tanks. This is not an issue of dispute. This is historical fact. Those of us who are around during the war on terror in the early years, we know all of these politicians, whether it's in Iraq or Afghanistan. We know all these politicians who only seized power by virtue of American force of arms, and NATO in Afghanistan's case, with a significant international element in the Iraqi case. So anyone who disputes this and says that no, the people that are running Iraq today or the Iranian regime, that they are anti-US, or that they've opposed the great Satan since time immemorial. These people are just clueless, and I think that came across loud and clear in my debate with Daniel. Like when I mentioned, for example, the Iranian regime's cooperation with Israel. Yeah, we're not talking about something that just kind of was quick one-off, quick under the table deal. This is something that was sustained from the very beginning of the Iran-Iraq war, and despite the fact that Khomeini was vociferous in his attacks against Israel and telling the world that we have to destroy the Zionists and we have to liberate Palestine, and he instituted this thing that they call Quds Day, where they basically every year they make a song and a dance about how they will be the liberators of Al-Quds al-Sharif, Jerusalem. Uh, you know, these things were all, and to this day, they are theatrics. From the earliest days of the Iran-Iraq war, we had two major clandestine efforts by the United States and by Israel. The first of which was known as Operation Seashell, which was instituted by the Israelis. And I cited books and references and all sorts of stuff in the debate, so I encourage people to go and have a look at that. But some of this comes from, former Mossad agents who worked on these deals. And I'm not just taking the word of a Mossad spy who may have an interest. It's true. He may have an interest in denigrating an enemy, right? But the contemporary records, for example, from the Tower Commission, which was the commission instituted by the US government to find out what happened in these arms transfers, because it became a huge scandal that rocked the Reagan administration at the time. And it became known as the Iran Gate scandal, because the United States government was claiming to be against the Iranians, while at the same time they were facilitating massive amounts of arms transfers, most of which were brokered by Israel.
Can I ask you a question, Brother Tallha? Is that connected to the Iran-Contra affair? Is that similar?
It's the same thing. Iran Gate and Iran-Contra is the exact same thing. They're just given two different names. No, nothing. People often get confused, so it's good that you asked.
Yeah, I just want to make sure.
Iran-Contra and Iran Gate are two names for basically the same thing. And like I said, the preceding that was Israeli aid in Operation Seashell, which was done at the highest levels of Israeli intelligence. It was corroborated by the investigative Tower Commission. And, they wouldn't do this. It's not in their interests to then go and expose an Israeli operation, which also implicates the American government. It was a huge scandal at the time. So this also is corroborated, by the way, by Iraqi intelligence reports. So, there are records of that were published later by the Iraqi Ministry of Foreign Affairs that showed what Iraqi intelligence had gathered on the Iranian enemy. And they discovered numerous shipments and manifests and everything else that showed that these shipments, brokered by Israeli agents, were shipping hundreds of tons of weapons to Iran to keep them in the game against Iraq.
Whilst chanting Maut Israel, while chanting Maut Israel.
Margbar Israel and whatever is in
whatever it was at the time.
Yeah. So they say that death to America, death to the great Satan, death to the little Satan, which is Israel, death to this, death to that, and they're taking, they're doing this, aren't they? They're doing this, yeah. So they're taking their, putting their hand, under the table and receiving massive amounts of weapons, huge amounts of weapons. It's something which is, in modern day terms, one of the estimates is $240 billion adjusted for inflation. Yeah, which is an astonishing amount of money. And another thing, this is the kicker, and I cited it again in the debate, so I encourage people to have a look. The money that the Iranians spent that went to Israel serviced a slush fund that the Israeli government then used to finance Jewish settlements, illegal Jewish settlements on occupied Palestinian territory.
Wow.
So these are the people that we're talking about. This is the kind of people that we're talking about. How on earth are you supposed to make an alliance with them to liberate Palestine from Zionist aggression and oppression and apartheid, etc., etc.? The
it's ridiculous.
Sheer fact that it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. There's no way you can ally with someone who is actively working with your enemy. It's just a nonsensical cue. And he's
but
like,
can I just raise one point? And again, I've read this somewhere, but I can't, ratify the source, that when Iran eventually become, Shia dominated due to the Safavids, and they've been a conspiracy to the Muslims ever since that time. Wasn't it Frederick from, I think, the Austrian Empire that said, if it wasn't for them, we would have been reading the Quran? I've heard this somewhere, but I'm not sure where I've heard it from.
It's an anecdote. I'm not sure if it's historically accurate, but I mean, the Ottomans said this themselves. The Ottomans were pushing into Europe. They reached all the way to Vienna and Austria.
Yeah,
and they had to turn back to face the Safavid invasions at the time.
That's right.
So it happened time and time again, time and time again. So from the days of Shah Ismail, and he lost decisively at the Battle of Chaldiran to Sultan Salim Khan, who I'm somewhat famous for being a huge fan of, or should I say infamous? It
Yavuz,
depends on who you're asking.
Yavuz Salim,
Yes, Yavuz Sultan Salim, yeah. And he crushed them decisively.
Alhamdulillah,
His son Suleiman then crushed them again.
Alhamdulillah.
And this went on up until the days of Murad IV of the Ottoman Empire, who solidified, more or less, by the way, the Iranian-Iraqi border that you see today is more or less based upon the former border between the Ottomans and the Safavis.
So Alhamdulillah, even since the time of the great Ottomans, they understood the evil, the dangers of the 12 Shias, and Alhamdulillah, and again we hope this video or this live stream would educate our brothers and sisters of the history which we've just done, and now moving on to modern history, which again
Before
I
we
just
move
find.
on,
Go on.
and
Go on.
on the subject of the Ottomans, and while they did do good in terms of defeating the Safavis, it's worth bearing in mind that in the latter period of the empire, when the empire was known for being the sick man of Europe and became basically people were kicking it about left, right, and center, in that final 200 years or so, and despite the ancestors of these sultans being very cognizant of the threat posed by the Safavis and 12 Shi'ism in particular, they actually facilitated the 12 Da'wah in Iraq. So Iraq used to be actually amongst the Arabs almost entirely Sunni. Like people, they often hear, because they listen to American or Western news sources. And by the way, a proper census of Iraq hasn't been done in a very long time indeed. So no one actually knows the precise
Majority or minority, who's got more in terms of demographics and stuff.
It's indisputable as far as I'm concerned that the Sunnis are the majority, because you have Sunni Arabs, Sunni Kurds, Sunni Turkmen, which are a minority, but they're prevalent. And and then on the rest of it, you have one tribe of Kurds, the Failis, are Shia. The rest of them are all Sunni. And you've got some minority groups like Yazidis or whatever who aren't even,
Muslims.
Even the Shia don't even consider them Muslim. So we could sort of discount them, and they're very, very small minority anyway. And amongst the Arab tribes, you've got some Shia, you've got some Sunnis. Sometimes in the same tribe, you'll have Sunnah and Shia.
Sunni and Shia. Oh,
yeah,
interesting.
but the point is that a lot of those, especially in the south, that was down to Ottoman neglect. And I want to be very clear about that, because people have this kind of romanticized image of the Ottoman Empire as if it was always great and it was always fantastic and
this utopia that they were amazing from the inception into the end.
Yeah, which is not true. And unfortunately, that issue of them kind of dropping the ball and taking their eye off the ball has led to the problems partially that we face today in Iraq. Like in terms of the sectarian strife and everything, there's no discounting the Ottoman effect on that. But anyway, moving to more modern,
just to sort of because Brother Tallha has here and he can correct me. So Iraq is the cradle of civilization. Let's just say that Iraq is the cradle of civilization. You got obviously so much history, whether it's from the Assyrians, and then you continue on, and you just need you need half a day to talk about Iraq even more, in terms of its history. So in terms of land and demographics, the southern part is predominantly Shia, Basra, and various areas. Then the central part.
No.
Sorry, am I fallen to the conspiracy? Have I fallen to the conspiracy?
Yeah. So Basra used to have a very, very large Sunni presence.
Wow.
And historically it was known as this. You've got luminaries like Hassan al-Basri, for example.
Sahih.
Al-Basri, because he was
from Basra.
From Basra, and he wasn't. His roots are quite likely to be Persian, actually, but from Basra still, and we count him as from one of us. Sufyan al-Thawri,
Basra.
He spent a lot of his life in Basra, most of his life, in fact. So you've got these huge Sunni figures. These are not small figures. If it was a predominantly Shi'i or Rafidi city, there's no way you would have such presence of such powerful Sunni luminaries. It's not possible.
And just to add as well, Brother Tallha, you're probably aware of this, that Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab, when he was a teenager, went to Basra to study.
Yeah, yeah, and it was always known as a a mainstay of fiqh and learning. It's not
Yeah,
just a
yeah.
place of
Alhamdulillah.
it's not just something which is very recently, obviously, unfortunately, there's been a sectarian cleansing campaign. So yes, now today Basra is almost 100% Shia, but that's not a
Subhanallah.
natural state of affairs.
Fair enough. Fair enough. It's like they've depopulated and then they populated and then moved and
Yeah,
exiled
yeah,
and
yeah,
whatnot.
absolutely. As I said in the debate as well, but it's not one of the most well-known recent examples where it's been quite documented is in an area called Jurf al-Sakhar, which is not too far from Baghdad.
They
They've
committed a
even
massacre
renamed
there.
it.
We'll get to that. They committed a Jufar
Yeah, yeah,
Nasr, they
yeah, yeah,
called it, didn't they?
yeah.
Yes, yes, yes,
They,
yes, yes.
that's right, that's right. Yeah, but we'll get to that.
We'll get to that. So Talha, now moving on from the Iran-Iraq war, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, bless you for that enlightenment, because I didn't know about, the intricacies of the Iran-Iraq war and how the conspiracy about the Iran Contra affair, the Iran Gate. So now post Iran-Iraq war, how was life for Iraqis, and where do you fall into this? Because I know people keep mentioning your bald head, and I have to mention it as well. It's quite shiny, to be honest. But so post
Mhm.
Iraq, I mean post Iran-Iraq war, how was life? What was the how did Iraq rebuild itself leading up to the invasion of 2003?
So I wouldn't say it managed to rebuild itself. The Iran-Iraq
Oh,
war had repercussions that lasted for a very long time, despite the
okay.
best efforts of Saddam Hussein to try to kind of kickstart the economy.
Mhm.
But you have to bear in mind we had almost a million man army. It's very difficult to demobilize almost a million men overnight. You have to prepare your economy for that. You go from a war footing to a more civilian focused enterprise, and that required oil revenue. And at the time, there was disputes in OPEC. This is leading up to the 1990, 1991 Gulf War, where the neighboring Arab countries were producing oil in excess of OPEC quotas. And what that means is it's basic supply and demand.
Okay,
If you have a massive supply of oil, then the price is going to go down.
true.
Uh, Similarly, if you reduce the supply, then the price will go up. And that's why, for example, you can see the United States has been pretty unhappy with Saudi Arabia over the past few years. They've always made
Right.
announcements because Mohammed bin Salman and other, even before him, with before his father was totally inert, uh, under King Abdullah, there were always U.S. efforts. For example, if they want to assist in the global economy and particularly the American economy, that's what they care about fundamentally. They would always ask them to produce more oil, and
Yeah.
that's to lower prices, to depress prices.
Okay.
So what happened was, after spending tens of billions of dollars fighting Iran, and the way that the Iraqis viewed it, and in particular Saddam Hussein, and this is in the archives, by the way. So post 2003, the invasion, all of the Ba'athist regime's documents, including private meetings of Saddam Hussein with his high command, Revolutionary Command Council, military leaders, intelligence directors, and so on and so forth, and even civilian leaders and ministers and whatnot. Um, you can see that Saddam Hussein viewed Iraq as having fought this war with Iran, 8-year war, not just for Iraq, but for the purpose of sealing the export of Khomeini's revolution inside Iran and not allowing it to spread in the region.
Okay.
And again, despite all the other bad that he did, you could see the benefit in keeping Iran, especially Khomeini's Iran, tucked up and sealed away.
Wilayatul
Look at the
Faqih.
result today. Look at the result today. Iran since 2003, America came in, absolutely destroyed Iraq, and Iraq was the dam holding back this flood of aggressive tashayyu, aggressive
They
Shiism.
the Badr organization, which we're going to get to, they were exiled
Mhm.
in Iran. Soon as the invasion happened, like you said, they carried them on American banks. They flooded in, didn't they? They flooded in from Iran.
Not just that. I mean, and I mentioned this in the debate, and I even
You did.
highlighted it in some text, and I showed it to
You did.
to the audience. So again, I recommend people go back and watch it. It's on my channel. The 15,000 Badr Brigade militias, they're technically Iraqi Shia. They
Yeah.
were hosted, trained, funded, incubated by Iran, and in 2003 they made an offer that the British occupation forces could not refuse, which was, we're going to come in and we're going to help you take control of Basra and the surrounding areas. Yeah. So again, these are the people that Daniel thinks that we should be allying with.
Impossible.
Which is it's preposterous. It's preposterous. You know, they not only assisted the invasion and the occupation of Iraqi territory, and this is one faction, by the way, just one.
Yeah, out of ten thousands, you can say, on the ground.
Well, today there are at least 70 armed factions that are all loyal to Iran. Yeah, and each of them have thousands of members. Like we're talking about in total, you know, at least 300,000 to 400,000 armed militiamen.
And these are not military. These are not from the Iraqi military. These are militias. These are militias funded by Iran.
Well, here's the thing. They've now subverted the Iraqi system, and they issued a law during the fight against ISIS between 2014 and 2017 that recognized an umbrella organization called the Hashd al-Sha'bi, which is Popular Mobilization Forces. It's an umbrella organization which gathered all of these various Iranian militias, and they recognized them as a formal part of the Iraqi armed forces, which is ridiculous.
The Shara, they're giving them legitimacy.
They gave them legitimacy, and they gave them a share. This is critical. They gave them a share of Iraq's defense budget.
Ooh.
Right? So we're talking, again, billions of dollars, and all of that gets filtered to these Iranian organizations. So this is something which is interesting, and I think it's worth bearing in mind and raising it again.
Okay.
One of Daniel's key contentions was that, you know, I condemn. You know, Iran, if it does something in Iraq or in Syria, I condemn. And the Muslims of Iraq and Syria, and he emphasized Syria because he knows, unfortunately, many people are ignorant about Iraq and don't really care too much about it. But he's like, you know, in Syria, they should resist. They should resist the Iranians, and we should support them in resisting. Okay, that's fine. So if we're going to make an alliance with Iran, I don't think Daniel is very well acquainted with a map of the region. And this is, again, why total amateurs should stay out of, you know, the business of grown-ups. Yeah. If you look at the map, Iran is here.
Yeah.
Palestine is here. And in between, you have Iraq and Syria and Lebanon and everywhere else. Iran should be resisted, Jordan. According to, well, they're not so involved in Jordan.
True.
But the, you know, the Iranians, they're not so involved in Jordan. That they've met the Jordanian authorities have managed to keep them out. They do have clandestine activities there for sure. But the main battlegrounds are Iraq and Syria and Lebanon. Now, all three of these areas, all of them, are basically under occupation.
They are.
And crimes have been committed by these Shia militias and directly by the Iranian so-called Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. So how on earth, if we're supposed to resist them in these areas, how on earth is this, you know, mystical army, this fabled army that we're supposed to make from Iran?
Hold hands.
You know, we all hold hands. We'll march all the way from Tehran to Al-Quds, to Jerusalem, yeah?
That's right.
What planet are you on, boy? Yeah, it's just total nonsense. I know.
So that's Iran's involvement in these areas. Now we're going to focus on Iraq because, like you said, Tallha, I'm born in '85. I was practically following the developments in Iraq in 2003. You know, I was almost like 20 years old, so I was really, you know, invested in it. But many of the Gen Zs who are not aware of what happened in Iraq. So 2003, you emphasized that they carried the American tanks on their backs, which they clearly did, and they supported the regime. You had Aida Lawi, you know, who was put in charge. Then I think it was Nur al-Maliki, and then it carries on. So without fast forwarding a bit too much, what happened? So they came in, they invaded Iraq, they placed Iraq under occupation, and then all of a sudden these Shiite militias came from Huna wal Hunak. So how was life like for Ahl Sunnah in Iraq at the time of the American invasion?
I mean, without doubt, it was atrocious. It was a coordinated, institutionalized system of destroying the power and the heritage of Ahl Sunnah in Iraq. You could be pulled over, and within the first year or so of the occupation, it wasn't so bad. Like you could see the kind of the beginnings of these Iranian groups, coming into power. And interestingly enough, by the way, as an aside, the Intercept published a bunch of leaked files from the Iranian intelligence, not the IRGC. It's a competing intelligence faction within the Iranian state. And it gives you a huge background. There's a wealth of information on how they set up their agents and their spies and their networks, and even their own analyses of what the IRGC was doing in Iraq, where they were actually critical, thinking that they're overplaying their hand with the Shia militias and the way that they were torturing and killing Sunnis. So, for example, as well, and again, this is worth bearing in mind. I have skin in the game. Okay, so not only did the Baathists torture my father, but post 2003, the Shia took my uncle and my cousins. I'm going to give you a specific example of my uncle.
Of course.
When they took him while he was visiting his son, by the way, who had just been snatched off the streets, and they were later told that he was in a prison. So he went to that prison to visit his son. Knowing that he would be going there, the Shia snatched him and he just vanished. We had no idea what went on.
Wow.
A few days later, my aunt receives a phone call, and all she can hear is screams. Just screams. And she didn't know what was going on, and they stopped torturing my uncle long enough for him to confirm that it was him, and to basically ask her to pay a ransom to free him. Now, we managed to get that money together. We paid them the ransom, and everything went radio silent. And by the way, while we were gathering that money, my aunt would receive periodic phone calls with her husband being tortured over the phone. So this is how they tortured him. And eventually, by the way, they didn't release him. They just dumped his body. And it was only located. It was located in a morgue, and another family member had to actually bring his guards. I mean, Iraq is totally lawless, totally lawless. Like, it's a little bit less lawless now, but back then it was. You know how you've got this perception of the Wild West? It was worse than that.
Wow.
So a relative had to go with armed men to this morgue in order to extract his body, and it was only identified by my cousin, who recognized his father because he had the distinct birthmark on his leg. Otherwise, he was totally unrecognizable. He had his body was just totally disfigured. He was burnt with chemicals. He had his eyes gouged out. He had his bones broken, his finger and toenails extracted. They used a power drill and put it through his body in multiple places. And his body was so disfigured that he could not be recognized were it not for that birthmark. So these are, this is kind of what the Sunnah of Iraq could expect from their new rulers. Like, as much as they criticize Saddam Hussein, where do you have systematized mass slaughter based upon someone being called, for example, Haidar, commonly used name amongst the Iraqi Shia,
Abbas or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, you get Sunnis who are called Haidar.
Oh yeah, true.
But it's very common to, amongst the Iraqi Shia that you'll have Haidar and whatnot. You can't find that, and I challenge anyone to find it where Saddam Hussein specifically, with the intention of specifically killing Shia and reducing their numbers and whatever, nonsense, utter nonsense. Yeah.
What would you say then, whilst we're talking about
Mm.
Iraq, we're on the topic
Yeah.
because we're doing a post-debate analysis. Saddam's crimes against the Kurds, so he targeted a group of people, didn't he? In the Kurdish areas.
Yeah. So what occurred there was there's numerous things that happened,
Okay.
and first of all, it's not just an Iraqi thing; it's an Iranian thing as well. This is something that they always like to skip over.
Okay.
Yeah. So they like to blame the Iraqis, and sometimes whenever they've got beef with the Turks, they blame the Turks as well and say, "Oh, look at what they do to the Kurds." Like, you're in no position to talk. You're worse actually than those two examples. And in terms of the Iraqi case, and I said it very clearly. I said it very clearly during the debate. I said, "May Allah curse May Allah curse whoever caused any harm to my Kurdish brothers and sisters in Islam.
Ameen.
Yeah.
Ameen. Ameen.
May Allah curse them. And I asked him, I said, can you curse the Iranians for doing this as well? He can't do it. He can't do it because he doesn't care. This is the thing. He just uses these people's lives as a talking point. It doesn't affect him.
It's point scoring. It's point scoring, isn't it?
It's point scoring. It's point scoring.
Yeah.
And here's another interesting tidbit from him. And I shared this on Twitter actually not too long ago. From my maternal side, I actually have Kurdish ancestry from the Rojbayani tribe.
Basha, Zor Basha.
So unfortunately, and I would love to learn it, but unfortunately, I don't speak any, very little Kurdish.
But you got Kurdish, you got Kurdish roots, and you got your DNA, which will prove that we're based on your ancestry.
Yeah, absolutely. And not only that, actually, I've got records of my Kurdish ancestors who were officials in the Ottoman Empire. So it's not just a case of I heard from my mum.
No, you got roots.
No.
You got roots.
I've got roots. Yeah, I know exactly where they're from. They're from Suleymaniya, or Sulaymani, as the Kurds like to say, in northern Iraq. And then my paternal side are 100% Arabs from Naim, who ironically
enough, my name.
Yeah.
That's my name, Naim.
MashaAllah. So yeah, it's one of these things where it's ironic because they claim to love Al al-Bayt, but everyone knows Naim, especially if you're familiar with these Arab tribes and lineage, which by the way Daniel was making a mockery out of and saying that we're all fake Arabs. I'm as Arab as it gets from my paternal side. And Naimi is a Musawi Hashimi.
Wow.
In other words, descended from Musa al-Kadhim through his son.
The Al-Bayt Imam.
Al-Bayt, yeah. So it's funny how he likes some Al-Bayt and hates others.
I was watching a documentary. It's one of the Arab documentaries, and they said the actual Arabs is debatable. So they said the actual Asl, they say some is Yemen, and they even go as far as saying that the original Arabs are Iraqi, like the original Arabs that migrated. And some say, in Transjordan. So they say the original Arabs, even though people assume is Yemen, it's debatable. It could be Iraq, it could be Jordan, Transjordan,
even in Syria.
Transjordan,
Sham.
The original Arabs come from there.
Yeah, and it's irrelevant either way, to be honest.
No, I know. I'm just raising the point. It's not just that.
No, absolutely. You're right to do so. But I'm saying it's irrelevant because in terms of the Arabs that people care about, historically speaking, it's the Arabs of the time of the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the Sahaba, and the Tabi'een, etc. And many of those tribes, like this is again documented fact, like this is something that Daniel hates when things are documented. It kind of it messes with his programming, right? He starts to have glitches. But lots of these Arab tribes, where did they migrate to after the Futuhat al-Islamiyah? From the days of Khalid ibn Walid radiallahu anhu, who broke Sassanian power in Iraq, and after him Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas in Battle of Qadisiyah radiallahu anhu, and they entirely destroyed the Sassanian Empire in Iran itself. And then obviously Khalid ibn Walid radiallahu anhu and Amr ibn As and others went into Egypt, went into Syria, etc., etc. Now all of these Arab tribes who fought in these campaigns, not all of them went home. And even when some of them did later on, when the Umayyi Khilafah and the Abbasis and so on, wherever there was opportunity, luminaries and elites from these tribes would depart from the Arabian Peninsula and go to these lands and settle there.
That's right.
It's not unusual. It makes total sense. Imagine you're an empire and look at the Ottomans, for example, if we're going to go forward in time. You can find many families across the Arab world and in North Africa with Turkish heritage. Why? Because the Ottomans, which are largely a Turkic empire, when they conquered these lands, their administrators, their elites, their sometimes settlers from other places would migrate to other lands. They'll intermarry with the local community.
Yeah.
And no one had an issue. I still don't have an issue. Alhamdulillah, it's a beautiful thing, I think.
Yeah,
You know, it's
my wife's
people.
Moroccan, and it's good. Alhamdulillah,
I,
it's fine.
I was thinking, I've seen you in your Moroccan attire, so I was wondering.
I had to get it from somewhere. But Habibi, moving on from the history, because everything's got to be connected. And this is why we got you here, because ultimately everyone wants to learn about the reality, especially post Iraq. Now, 2006, and we know the Americans placed the Shia administration. You had the other one as well. What's his name? So the one that smacked his head, and then and what's that family called?
Are you talking about the guy who got blown up in the shrine?
Yes,
Yeah.
that family,
I
Barker
think
family.
yeah, it was Bakr. Yeah, it was Sadr.
So you got the Sadr family, you got the Barker family, and these Shi'i, influential families as they called it, they basically supported the
Yeah, so
Americans. And
Sadr, Khoi, these kind of you find a lot of these names, and they're all Iranian names, by the way. This is another Sistani.
yeah,
They say
Sistani.
that they're Arabs and what have you, and then they'll call them even Maraja of Iraq. I've never seen an Iraqi called Khoi. It's a village in Iran. That's why it's called Khoi. Sistani is because he's from
Khoi.
Sistan in Iran.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Iran.
Yeah,
Yeah,
even the
yeah, yeah,
Sadrists,
yeah.
they have Iranian roots, and then they migrated to Lebanon historically. Then they migrated to Iraq.
Oh,
So people don't know this. Like, they
okay.
just assume that, Muqtada Sadr is apparently an Iraqi. There's nothing Iraqi about him. As I said elsewhere, in terms of al-Khoi, because they were saying, Daniel described him as an Iraqi marja, and that he's more senior than
Yeah,
Khomeini.
he's not
And
Iraqi. Yeah.
and
He's not Iraqi.
and
Forgot about his
I
name.
said, yeah, the only Iraqi thing about him is the soil that they dumped on his corpse when he died. That's it.
That's it.
Nothing it was Iraqi about him.
So, Habibi, 2006, um,
Yeah,
an event happened, and that was the Askari shrine bombings, right?
yeah.
And even though it's discussed that this was planted by Iran, so that's obviously now venturing into conspiracy. Ahl Sunnah bore the brunt of that, didn't they? 2006. It was
Yeah, that's kind of when things went into overdrive in terms of the sectarian
overdrive.
killings.
So,
Sectarian
give us a
killings
bit of
were
background
happening
about that.
before that.
So,
Yeah,
what from
so
2003, 2006, and then from 2006, how was life for Ahl Sunnah? Since that campaign that they did.
like I said, from 2003, although it wasn't as violently obvious as post 2006, it was still happening. So
What's
the
happening?
sectarian and demographic changing of, for example, Basra, as
Yes.
I've already mentioned, that was occurring from 2003. Like, it's not
Yes.
something which was, there was suddenly a sectarian civil war.
No, no,
No,
no,
no,
no. That's
it
right.
was always part of the plan. So they came in and they started to, commit sectarian cleansing campaigns against Sunni families. But there was a strong international presence which stopped them from going, too far. And that's not to say that the international presence is good. Yeah,
Okay.
if it wasn't for the international presence, none of this would have been happening in the first place.
That's right.
What
The
I mean
invasion.
to say is, yeah, what I mean to say is that the international presence that was there was to serve the interests of those international powers. It wasn't necessarily in their interests to be seen to be part of a systematic cleansing of the Sunnah of Iraq.
That's right.
That's not a good look. Yeah, even if they don't necessarily care about us, obviously they don't care, but it's not a good look. It's not something that you want on your
Yeah.
resume. Yeah.
And they wanted to
So
be known as liberators as well. So if they start slaughtering the Sunni population, then it would blow their cover, basically. If that makes any sense.
yeah, if they made it blatant,
Yeah.
that's what they were trying to avoid. So they didn't mind it being, a bit on the sly, or
Mm.
as happened particularly, uh, when laws were passed by the Coalition Provisional Authority. The first law that they passed under military governor Paul Bremer was the so-called de-Baathification process.
Okay.
Yeah. So what they did was they said basically any former Ba'athist would be hunted down more or less as a terrorist and would be banned from any participation in any future Iraqi government, or basically denied jobs. If they had a job currently, they would be fired and someone else would replace them, etc., etc. But the kicker is this: everyone in Iraq was technically a Ba'athist. And I
Okay.
know that sounds weird, but you're talking about totalitarian regimes.
Yeah, it
So
makes sense.
imagine in those days, under the Baathists, for you to get any job in the civil service, as lowly as a waste
Janitor.
collector, for example, or janitor, whatever, even school teachers, doctors, um, all of the senior professions, university lecturers, you name it. Everyone had to be a member of the Ba'ath Party. It doesn't matter whether you believed it in your heart; it was totally irrelevant.
On paper.
What it was on paper, you had to be a member. So that then gave a pretext, a legal justification. And obviously, like, who knows these ins and outs?
No.
Iraqis know this.
That's right.
But generally speaking, when you're looking at it from an external perspective and you're looking at the situation in Iraq, most people be like, oh, those Baathists, they were bad. So I don't care what happens to them. Let them be unemployed. Let them be kicked out of the army. Let them. Yeah. The reality is, you're talking about regular Iraqis. You're not talking about die-hard, card-carrying members of the Ba'athist regime who believe in its ideology and whatever. No, these are people that just needed to get by. And what's even funnier,
and the perks of being a civil servant, it's all right. Yeah, we'll sign up for it, no problem. Just give us a
it's
job.
not even that. There was no real private sector, like most Middle Eastern economies. Even in Turkey today, one of the largest employers is the public sector.
Okay.
And we're talking about an Iraq which post 1990 was under crippling sanctions. So there was no real private sector. It's not like you could engage in import and export and what have you. Between 1990 to 2003, and even onwards, by the way, the sanctions continued after the invasion. And up until 1996, they killed 500,000 Iraqi children. And
Oil for food program. Oil for food
program, yeah. And we got substandard so-called food. A lot of it was rotten with weevils and disgusting kind of pests. Yeah, they didn't care. They didn't care. And the world didn't care because, especially in those days, there was no real social media. There's no kind of awareness. And even today with social media, like the Syrian revolution happened in the age of social media. So it was a live streamed genocide. People could see it clear as day. Yeah. When Iraq happened, there was nothing. I don't even know when the first social media network came out, but I remember MySpace was like 2007, 2006.
Yeah, like Facebook was 2006-7, wasn't it? MySpace, Facebook.
And back then, like, you couldn't do like loads of videos, and now it's easy for us to have live streams and we can do videos. And I say it's easy, obviously. I just started my own channel, as you know, and it's I've been trying to get out the content, but it's still easier than going to a mainstream media organization and expecting them to come and cover your plight. Now you can do it yourself. But Iraq never had that, so people were just kind of unaware. Especially in the 1990s, when they were killing Iraqi children by the hundreds of thousands, if not millions. They didn't care.
I remember when I was growing up, Tallha, I remember this like yesterday. Kofi Annan used to come and say, the oil for food program. And I was thinking that just made me sick. Like, you give us oil, we give you food because you're under sanctions. Yeah. How is that morally acceptable? But yet everyone didn't care, did they? They didn't blink an eyelid. They didn't care. So 2006, Tallha, let's talk about the Shia militias now. Because ultimately, when Daniel and others are saying, Iran is fine, we could ally against the Shaitan al-Asghar or whoever it may be. Bring us the details as to the crimes committed by these Shia militias, and there were 70 and even more. What type of crimes were they committing and how bad were they?
So the Badr Brigade that we mentioned earlier, they actually had an interior minister. So we're not just talking about, by the way, gangsters, and they've got guns and they've got dens and they've got territory, and they do all of that stuff. They do the drug smuggling, they do the sex trafficking, anything that you can think of. If you've seen Narcos, for example, to speak to a younger generation,
Pablo Escobar.
Yeah, Pablo Escobar and these guys, and it's kind of romanticized. Anything that you see there, multiply it by 100, and the Shia militias do it in Iraq. Yeah, cross-border drug trafficking, sex trade, forcing children into mut'a marriages. They're not marriages, obviously. We know what it is. It's just rape and zina. That's what it is. Yeah. There's no such thing in Islam as a mut'a contract.
Of
It's a
course,
load of nonsense.
of course.
So they actually had the Badr Brigade, an interior minister known as Bayan Jabr Salah.
Okay.
So imagine this is a militiaman, a senior commander in a militia that had helped the British secure Basra and that had worked with the Americans to take control of Baghdad. And he's now interior minister. This person ran death camps and he instructed the federal police forces, which were all staffed by militiamen. So they give them a uniform, they give them a salary from the state, and they let them loose. And these people set up checkpoints in various cities, including Baghdad, Mosul, Samarra, which is a Sunni city,
Yes.
and where the Askari shrines are based. And they began, if your name, for example, is Talha, like mine, a Sunni name, Omar, Abu Bakr, Uthman,
So from the
Khalid,
Sahaba,
the Sahaba, the well-known Sahaba, yeah, and we know why. Why? They hate the Sahaba according to 12 Ithna Ashari
We know that.
creed.
We know that.
It's very well known. I don't need to go into the theology behind it.
Oh, the books are behind me. I could pull them out, but it's known. It's ma'ruf. We know this.
It's known, and you just did an excellent video on it, Jazakallah khair, a few days ago. So I encourage people to go and watch that and get it's only an hour long. It doesn't take much of your time. Learn a bit about what these people think about you and those that you love who transmitted the deen to you. Yeah, this is what they say about them. They curse them, they insult them, and if you name your sons after them and you happen to be in an area that they hold military power over, they would literally pull people to one side. They would pull out their ID card. They'll take a look at it. Oh, his name is Talha. They take him to one side. In the middle of the street, they'll gun him down.
Just to add evidence to that, the Grand Mufti of Iraq, Mufti Rifa Rafa'i, I'm just going to play it in Arabic, and obviously me and Tallha will translate, just to give clear evidence that this was happening. This isn't just we're romanticizing it, Tallha, right? This actually happened. So let's watch it, and we'll come back.
من غفلة في 2006 ذبح في يوم واحد من أهل السنة والجماعة أكثر من 1000 شاب في بغداد، ألقيت جثثهم على سدة الثورة تحت أنظار كل العالم ولم يتكلم العالم بكلمة. حرقت مساجدنا ومصاحفنا وانتهكت حرماتنا بذريعة أن هؤلاء فجروا المرقدين لعلي الهادي والحسن العسكري. ولكن حينما صح كيسي قال من قام بهذه العملية هم الإيرانيون وهم الحرس الثوري. فماذا فعل العالم؟ هل دعا الحرس الثوري لمحكمة دولية؟ وهل دعا الحكومة
Okay, so to translate that, just and Brother Talha would also obviously add his input into it. In one day alone in Baghdad in 2006, they slaughtered 1,000 Sunnis. Just think about this for a second. You want us to ally with such militias who are backed by Iran, because you have to add that these militias didn't prop up out of nowhere. They were supported, funded, trained by Iran. 1,000 Sunnis were killed in one day in Baghdad. You didn't hear about this. Number two, they burnt our masajids. Number three, they burnt our masahif. They burnt our Qur'ans. Number four, they violated the honor of our sisters in Iraq. And on top of that, this was under the pretext that the Sunnis were somehow responsible in the shrine or the explosion in Samarra of the two shrines, Hassan al-Askari and other imams as well. But in fact, it was the Iranian Revolutionary Guards that perpetrated this act to expand their sectarian militia and their killings, as Talha brother mentioned in 2003, even though it was just happening behind the scenes, but this is just where it just exploded. So Brother Talha, any comments on what Brother Sheikh or Mufti Rifa Rafa'i mentioned?
Well, one of the key things actually is he quotes General George Casey, who was one of the occupation generals at the time, and he is the one who pointed the finger at the Iranian Revolutionary Guard and blamed them. So it's not a case of some random Sunni popped up and started riffing off of his own song sheet. It was something that even the Americans were concerned about. Not because they love us, not because
No,
they care about
they
us.
don't care. They don't care.
No, but again, they were trying to govern Iraq and rule it for their own ends. The last thing that they wanted was for all hell to break loose because of Iranian meddling and tampering.
That's right.
Yeah. So although they helped the Iranians into positions of power and their proxies into positions of power, the idea was that it would be on American terms, but the Iranians subverted them over time. So
Wow.
what he was saying, I'm just going to add some detail as well.
Please,
and this
add
is
it,
not
add it.
this is not just a case of an Iraqi mufti or an Iraqi academic or whatever else saying this. Like, these there's documented examples, meticulously documented by human rights organizations in Iraq. Human rights organizations such as Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, the United Nations itself. And I know what people are going to say, especially Dan's tanky buddies. They're like, oh yeah, but they're the new world order, and blah blah blah. But it's one of these things like where they're trying to conspire against us. They're telling lies. They want it's nonsense. It's nonsense. You can't be thinking in such a way. You have to weigh evidence. Yeah, you have to. Yes, some of these people are politically motivated, but you can take evidence from one party and you can compare and contrast with the evidence from another party and another
right.
and another and another. And even in the science of hadith, you've got hadith mutawatir, for example.
Yeah,
where the whole reasoning behind that is the same as this. It's the same as this. You take sources of information from multiple independent sources, and if they're all saying the same thing,
it's impossible. It could be a lie.
Yeah. And we've got testimony of people who were being tortured in Iraqi jails, and they were in the next room next to them. They're trying to get them to confess to being members of a terrorist organization, whether it's Al-Qaeda, whether it's the Ba'athists, latterly the ISIS group, etc., etc. And they would say that they were forced to confess because despite the torture, they weren't confessing. So in the next room, they could hear women screaming while they were being raped, and they were being told that this is your sister, this is your mother, whatever.
Wow.
And they could hear that woman screaming the name of the person that they want to confess. Yeah, to emphasize the point that this is what we're going to do to your female relatives and members of your family if you don't confess. And if you do confess in Iraq to being a member or an aider and abetter of any terrorist group, yeah, even if you just provide vaguely defined material support or even moral support, Article 4 of Iraq's anti-terror law applies. And that basically is a very, very wide net. And anyone can be accused of it. You can be convicted very easily, and the sentence is death.
I've seen Iraqi television where they put them in that yellow suit and they walk them around the street and they say, "This is what I've done here," and then the women are shouting at him. All a stunt, isn't it? All a stunt just to.
Exactly. Imagine, for example, in any civilized country, this does not take place.
No, it doesn't.
And I know what's going to happen. People are like, "Oh, you don't take the kuffar as an example." Even a Muslim country, you don't see, for example, the condemned being taken on a parade of where the alleged crime took place.
Yeah.
And then they say, "Oh yeah, I did this. I have remorse. Please forgive me." No, I don't forgive you. I demand that you die. Yeah.
I know.
And this is on state TV.
And just to add as well, I can't share it. There's a newspaper article in Iraq, right? Because it only allows me to share video files, and it says 3000 مواطن عراقي يحملون اسم عمر طلبوا تغيير اسمائهم خوفا من القتل. 3,000 people. This is Iraqi newspaper. This is from Baghdad, Dr. Hamid Abdullah. This is written in an Iraqi newspaper that 3,000 Sunnis who carry the name Omar requested to change their name because they were feared by getting killed. You really think it's wise and even logical that we can ally with such people who have heinous crimes? And just to add, continuing. It's not as if it's ended and kumbaya, exactly. Sunni and Iraq now, Sunni and Shia Iraq is normal, and Syria we're going to get to. This is it's just so ridiculous and preposterous that you said that this is even a discussion. This is even a possibility. So, moving on, Brother Tallha, Iraq from 2006 up until the Syrian war, the militias were just running wild, weren't they? They were just running wild. Asaib Ahl al-Haq, Hajj
And they
al-Shabi.
continue to do so. They continue to do so.
So. They're still happening.
Even there was a protest movement, very peaceful protest movement, which started against the regime of Nouri al-Maliki, demanding, just basic rights. And this is like 2012, and it lasted for about a year. There were various protest camps. Unfortunately, Nouri al-Maliki, by the way, was aided and abetted by Sunni politicians, bought and paid for. Some of them, Sahwa, were more the military side, but yes, they did have their own politicians. But also,
there was one tribe in particular, the Asha'ir. What was that tribe called? They keep mentioning it. And he wrote a book saying you could ally with the Americans. It'll come to me, but carry on, Akhil Aziz.
Well, speaking of allying with the Americans and so on, and I should have mentioned this earlier, but the so-called Ayatollah Sistani actually had a fatwa when the invasion happened, forbidding the Shia from resisting the Americans.
Can I just stop you there? So, that's my next video. Let me play that for you.
Okay, sure.
I'll play that for you. So I've got that ready for you. Thank God you brought it up because I probably would have forgot it. Okay, let's put that in now. Is this the one I already played? Because I've got loads of.
قال لا وجود للجهاد في زمان الغيبة، فشيء اسمه جهاد في زمان الغيبة لم يكن، لذلك دخل الأمريكان ولم يحاربوا من قبل الشيعة، وهذا معلوم. ولكن حينما ونحن خلال هذه الفترات الماضية مع ما جرى علينا من اعتداء وانتهاكات للحرمات، ناشدنا المرجعية عشرات المرات، ولكن حتى وصلنا إلى مرحلة أنا قلت فيها أنه لا ينبغي لأي جهة أن تناشد المرجعية في طلب أي شيء، لأن الذي لا وجود لدافع ذاتي عنده لا ينبغي أن نتوسل به. طلبنا منهم أن ينصحوا هذه الحكومة لكي تخفف من وطأتها عن أهل السنة والجماعة في مناطقهم. هذه الحكومة حكومة طائفية بامتياز. الميليشيات المدربة في إيران تقتل على الهوية ليل نهار. ما يجري في السجون يندى له جبين الإنسانية. والله يا أخوان هنالك اغتصاب للرجال والنساء على حد سواء.
طيب لكن طلبتم
والله
من
يا أخوان هنالك إعدامات. نعم هنالك إعدامات من غير جريرة، وقتل في السجون وإلقاء الجثث على قارعة الطرقات. كل ذلك لم يتحدث به السيستاني ولا غيره. ولكن حينما وصل الأمر إلى أن تصل الحكومة إلى هذا الحد، حينما ثار الناس بوجهها وهم يشهدون بأن هذه الحكومة حكومة فاسدة، حكومة سارقة لأموال الناس، لم تقدم شيئا، ثارت ثائرتهم. وكثير ممن اتصل بي من علماء الشيعة ومن شخصياتهم قالوا صدرت هذه الفتوى بسبب الضغوط الإيرانية. إذا كانت الفتاوى تصدر بضغوط إيرانية، فأين قيمة الشرع وأين قيمة الدين الذي نتدين به لله عز وجل؟
Okay, lot to unpack there, right? Lot to unpack there.
I think there's a lot to translate there, so you may as well.
I know, I'm going to try my best because there's a lot to remember. And just to confirm, that tribe that I mentioned was the tribe of Alam. The tribe of Alam. You know, the Iraqi tribe of Alam. They had a scholar there, and he gave a fatwa saying that, you know, it's permissible to ta'awun ma'al American. I can't remember his name.
I don't remember this.
No, I'm gonna get a video for you, and it confirms it on there. Yahya Kubaisi. You know Yahya Kubaisi?
Oh, yeah.
He mentioned it, but I'll play that later. So to unpack the translation,
there's a lot of clowns, unfortunately.
Yeah, Yahya Kubaisi or
these guys that give fatwa that you shouldn't resist and you should be watching.
Yeah. I'll get the video. There are a lot of clients, 100%. Yeah, and you even got what's his name, Sheikh Harith, Sheikh Harith.
Bari.
Allah yarhamu. So what he said there was that when the Americans entered, and again, correct me with the translation because there was so much to unpack there. When the Americans entered, they gave a fatwa that they said لا وجود الجهاد في زمان الغيبة, that there's no jihad in the time of the major occultation of the Mahdi. So when the Americans came, right, they didn't fight the Americans. and this was known, right? So this government was known for punishing Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, and
Yeah.
they were killing Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, and they were raping the men and women in the prisons. And Sheikh or Mufti, what's he called, Rifa Rafa'i, mentioned that he implored the government to lessen the punishment that they're giving to us or punishing us with, but they didn't listen. And then on top of that, he mentioned something about the fatwa was under the pressure of the Iranian.
That's right. The
Yeah,
Iranian government pressured
the,
them to basically they admitted to him, because he's speaking to the so-called scholarly class. He's
yeah,
speaking to them, saying, you guys need to intervene. You guys need to rein your boys in. And they're like,
yeah,
oh yeah, we'd like to, but due to pressures from the Iranians, that's why we're issuing these fatwa,
yes,
which
yes,
basically, facilitates your murder. Sorry,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
yeah.
And this is the point. And anyone that doesn't have any grounding or understanding of the geopolitics and the reality that happened in Iraq, because you have to remember, Syria, it's where it all started with Iraq. Syria is just a continuation of what happened in Iraq. So those who are so gullible to just, I hate to say, it's just tip of the tongue, isn't it? Oh yeah, yeah. What happened in Iraq? No. If anything, you learn lessons, you derive lessons from Iraq. What's happening in Syria is it happened in Iraq, and it's just carrying on. So do not ignore what happened in Iraq. And this is the type of, and this is not just any cowboy. And again, mind my French, Brother Tallha, Mufti Rifa Rafa'i is a high scholarly class. He's the Grand Mufti of Iraq. So let's not ignore the fact that these massacres were happening at a huge level. You mentioned Amnesty International. The report, if you want to get into, its name is the name of the report is Militia Impunity. That's the actual name of the report. I've actually read it, and they show you the photos. And again, Iraq, Wallah al-Azim, if no one knows about the crimes in Iraq, go do your research and go back and read these reports. What do you reckon, Brother Talha?
No, absolutely, absolutely, and like I've even said this, by the way, to some of my Syrian brothers, and they know I support their cause 100%. But I told them at the time, I actually visited Syria. I think it was around
Oh,
about
did you?
2006. Yeah, 2006,
Oh,
before the war.
okay.
And I remember I was when they started to hear my Iraqi dialect,
All
they
right.
would say, what is wrong with you guys? Why are you having all this infighting? In Syria, we don't have this issue, and it's just some ignorant people. It's just some ignorant people. But now that the Syrian revolution's been going on for like 13 years now, what you see in Syria has already happened in Iraq.
Definitely.
And more.
That's right.
Like what's happened in Iraq has been a more sustained process than anything that occurred in Syria. And one of the major defects of the Iraqi situation is that we were unable to attract the empathy
of
the wider Muslim ummah. Forget the world, but Muslims,
just the Muslim ummah. Yeah.
Just and it's bizarre. It's bizarre. It truly is. Like that's also maybe a failing on our part for not communicating our struggle as well as we ought to have done. But the Syrians have enjoyed, despite the fact and despite the efforts of the Iranian regime, the Assadists, the tankies in the West, and so on, despite all of their obfuscation and their lies, the Syrians have to this day they enjoy a high degree of support, I would say, amongst the general
from the Muslim world.
Yeah,
and I think that's also to do with one, the social media growth, and then number two, the prophetic narrations. I speak a lot about charities. Charities abuse these causes because they can use prophetic text to take advantage of the emotions of the people. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Allahumma barik fi shamina," or ila shamina, oh come on God. And then people say, "Oh yeah, a sham," the angel's wings are over a sham. So another video I like to present to you. Have you heard of Ali Shimri? Shimri, yeah. He's a political analyst as well, isn't he? So he mentions a point as well. I'm only going to play a bit of it, but he mentions some vital points about you mentioned. All we're trying to do, brother, is or to our audiences, is to confirm and to show you that we're not just uttering conspiracy theories. What do you think, Brother Tallha? It's not just me and you speaking, and we've got like an anti-Shia agenda or anti-Iranian agenda.
No,
This
I mean,
is what actually happened.
Just as I did in the debate, everything I say can be sourced.
Yeah, ratified.
Everything I say can be it can be ratified. It can be examined for yourself. And it's very, I left a bibliography in the whole debate. I'm happy to educate people on this, and inshallah ta'ala, I'll make more videos. And again, you'll be able to see my sources in those videos, inshallah ta'ala.
So let's play this clip as well. So just sort of it collaborates what me and Brother Tallha are saying.
صار انه انظروا ماذا فعلت الحكومه. جاءت الاحداث الطائفيه عام 2006 قضت على اي امل ممكن تتحسن. عام 6 انتهى الموضوع، خلص. الحكومه مشتركه في ذبح السنه، وتم قالت ابراهيم الجعفري بضغط من السفير الامريكي في الوقت، لانه هذا الرجل مسؤول عن اطلاق يد القوات الحكوميه في ذبح السنه اثناء الحرب الطائفيه. هذا اللي ما يعرف الاحداث.
ألم يكن ممكنا لساسة السنة هؤلاء الذين تتحدث عنهم المؤثرين الأقوياء إذا جازت العبارة أن ينجحوا في إقامة معادلة توازن مع المكون الشيعي في العراق
الساسة
حتى بعد الحرب الطائفية؟ يعني
شوف الساسة السنة جاءوا نتيجة محاصصة. هذه المحاصصة أخلت بالوضع العراقي كله. لما جاء الأمريكان قالوا حصة السنة في العملية السياسية 20%، والأكراد أقل.
Okay, it gets lengthy. I've got the whole talk. It's about 15 minutes. Very good, very good. So what he's emphasized on the Harb al-Ta'ifiyah, the civil war in 2006. The government was involved or shared in the killing of this of Al-Sunnah wal Jama'ah in 2006. They shared in this and backed by the Iranian proxies. He mentioned an individual called Ibrahim al-Ja'fari. Who is he, Brother Tallha? Who he mentioned who actually was the one that was...
Ibrahim al-Ja'fari actually at one point held the prime ministry. So he's a member of the Da'wah party. Later on, he became foreign minister. In Iraq, we have an encyclopedia of jokes about how idiotic this guy is. Like the stuff that he says, the speeches that he gives, it's just like embarrassing. It's embarrassing. And I actually had the great displeasure of seeing him in London.
Oh, great.
When he came to an event in which I was invited at the Royal United Services Institute. And if you ask him where his left ear is, he'll,
point to the right.
He'll kind of go.
Oh, so
like this.
He's docile.
Yeah,
he's docile.
No, he doesn't. He can't. He has an inability to speak directly and honestly. Let's put it that way.
Okay. So Shiism in a nutshell, then basically.
More or less, yeah.
So I got one more clip, and after that, all my clips are done. It's about what I mentioned earlier about, again, not just the Shia, about a tribe in Iraq, and the brother put it up as well. But I want you to listen to it as well, so you'll recognize the person in general who we're talking about, the tribe.
بعد دخول الامريكان زين لديهم رجل سلفي داخل مدينة العلم اسمه ابو منار العلمي. هذا اخترع لهم فتوى مع دخول الامريكان زين بجواز التعامل مع المتغلب، واصدر كتاب بهذا الشأن. فكل بيت الجبارة مع اهل العلم صاروا ويا الامريكان بشكل صريح، ثم اصبحوا صحوات، ثم اصبحوا حلفاء للمالكي، والان هم حلفاء للحشد الشعبي. لا يمثل هؤلاء السنة، وبالتالي محاولة الحديث عن وضع العلم الخاص.
Okay, so that's the tribe. No, this is yeah. We're talking about Jabur.
Jabur.
Yeah, but Jabur are not. There's many honorable Jaburis. I'm going to say outright.
Okay, as a disclaimer. As a disclaimer.
Yeah, no, yeah. Like and as for Abu Manar al-Alami, I know who you're talking about now. Yeah, it was I didn't hear you clearly. This guy is an absolute
joke.
I'll have to censor my speech gratuitously.
Me too. I've read his book, by the way. I downloaded his book, believe it or not. I actually downloaded his book.
Did it cause you brain damage?
I didn't sleep for about 2 days.
Yeah. This guy, look, this is what's hilarious, actually. You know how Daniel always criticizes the Madkhalis and Madakhila.
Yeah.
This guy is basically a Madkhali for the Iranians.
Yeah,
So,
he's 100%.
him and Daniel would get along like a house on fire. They'd love each other.
Subhanallah al-Azim. So in terms of Syria now, because I don't want to make this too lengthy, because I did this intentionally with Tallha. Why? Because everyone knows what's happened in Syria when what happened in Dir'a, what happened in Halab, what happened in Hims. We know. It was all over our screens. May Allah aid them, and may Allah give them victory, as well as our Palestinian brothers against the Zionist Adu. And Iraq, as you said, I'm not saying intentionally, by the way, but I believe not many people know about it. And not many people know about the reality that happened in Iraq. It was absolutely, you can't put into words what happened in Iraq. And Syria, so now that we're obviously moving on from Iraq, but we never ever forget what happened in Iraq. Just get that out there. We will never ever forget what happened in Iraq. And anyone that is, in the 2000s, who were born in the 2000s and listening to this particular live stream between me and Brother Tallha, go do your research, watch documentaries of what they did in Iraq, and you would see that this so-called alliance that people are shouting, considering what's happening in Palestine right now, it's a absolute joke. And my friend, I could use more, direct words, but I'll say it's BS. It's BS. It's just a joke. So Syria, Brother Tallha, what's your take on developments that's happened in Syria with the Shia militias and these Iranian-backed militias, as well as the Iranian Revolutionary Guards that were operating in Syria? What could you
I mean, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, was in Syria from day dot. They were there from. There's so much, like I remember even there's Russian reporting, and obviously Russia is an ally of Iran.
RT.
Not just RT, by the way. We're talking about Sputnik and other channels. The TASS, TASS service. There's numerous reports that you can find where they mention the IRGC was involved from the very beginning, and they did it sort of in a very cheeky way. So early on in the war, I think it was around about 2012, there was an exchange of prisoners between the revolutionaries and the regime, and amongst the exchange was several dozen IRGC guys, officers, right? And the excuse that was given was, "Oh no, they're retired. Yeah, they just happen to be visiting Sayyida Zainab shrine and some other shrines around Syria." So there's just this massive amount, dozens of IRGC operatives. They're all recently retired, conveniently. They were all just, casually visiting shrines in a war-torn country,
having a shisha in the old Damascus.
And then all of a sudden, those appalling Sunnis nabbed them, put hoods over their heads, and dragged them off, for a hostage exchange.
Violent.
It's just absolutely, ridiculous. So they were there from day one. They were helping the Assad regime. They helped the Assad regime set up the Shabiha, the whole National Defense Forces, as they became known, their own Assadist militias. They organized them. They assisted in the transfer of Pakistani and Afghan Shia, known as the Zainabiyun and the Fatimiyun. They brought them thousands of miles away from Syria, across Iranian territory, across Iraq. Again, Iraq is the linchpin in all of Iran's power. They used Iraq as a staging ground, basically, to gather these people, train them, and then send them off to fight and die for the cause of, hilariously, Ba'athism, which Daniel is apparently opposed to, unless it's in Syria.
Which you are.
Which I am not. I'm not a Ba'athist. I am the Ba'athist. Yeah.
Oh yeah, you are the what was the founding father of the Ba'ath?
Michel Aflaq.
Michel Aflaq, and the other one, Batayri, what's his name?
So you had, I don't know if you
Saleh,
saw it.
Saleh, something like that. His name is the second one.
I don't know if you saw it. It was really funny. They tried to, some of his fanboys tried to insult me. So they edited me over the. It's an old painting of Saddam Hussein, but he's not dressed as a Ba'athist. He's not dressed as a Ba'athist. He's dressed as a field marshal of the Iraqi armed forces. And let's get this straight. The Iraqi armed forces is not a Ba'athist institution. In fact, the Ba'athists were so afraid of the Iraqi armed forces that they and a possible coup occurring, that they created something called the Jaysh al-Sha'bi, Popular Army. Yeah. So
Okay.
there was an army to counter the army in case there was a coup. Yeah. If they were Ba'athists, why would you need to do that? Yeah. And this is something that, Daniel, he tried to insult my relatives because they fought in the Iran-Iraq war, and alhamdulillah, they killed thousands of Khomeinists, yeah, of which I'm very proud. Yeah. They're not Ba'athists. Alhamdulillah, they're religious people. They pray 5 times a day. They believe in Islamic brotherhood. They believe in love between one another, Arab, Kurd, you name it, they don't care. But when it comes to Khomeinists, and when it comes to Khomeinists, they believe in terminating them. So,
Can I ask you what? I'm just gonna ask one question, because I think it'll be a bit unfair of me, considering we're doing a post-debate analysis and we're going to get to Syria. I don't know how much time we got, but we ain't got much. You mentioned Daniel's sister. Now, why did you do that? What was the reason to mention his sister? Because that's leaves a bad taste in the mouth, don't you think? If you mention family members.
Not really. I mentioned it because I needed him to engage his humanity. I mentioned what happened to his sister because, first of all, Daniel mentioned it. It's not a secret. It's on his website. Okay. You go search for, go search The Muslim Skeptic, which is how I found out about it, by the way. And what happened to her was horrific. And in the debate, I made that crystal clear. What happened to her was horrific. And the guy who's responsible for her death and hiding her body and just making it disappear, I said to Daniel very clearly, he deserves the death sentence. But they gave him 5 years and he was out in 2 years, I think. Yeah.
He's out.
It's monstrous. He's out. Yeah, he's out and he's free. And he's, according to Daniel, according to the post on his website, he's back to his old tricks. So the injustice that Daniel felt, and I made dua for her. I made dua for her.
Yeah,
body
you did.
You did. I made dua for his family to find closure and peace. Because I myself have,
lost relatives. Yeah.
I've lost relatives. I've even had, my sister had a horrific ex-husband who abused her, and until the end of her life, she died under tragic circumstances. So I'm able to empathize with him. What I'm trying to do, and unfortunately, it seemed to have been futile. I wanted Daniel to empathize with others, just as you feel pain when your sister is put through horrific circumstances. Why is it that you cannot see how the father, the brother, the husband of some Syrian woman or Iraqi woman who's being raped in prisons to force confessions out of their male relatives, why is it that you cannot empathize with them? Or you just give some kind of, I condemn what Iran does. I condemn.
Okay.
It's not good enough. It's not good enough. So I wanted him to engage his humanity, engage his heart. He calls them brothers and sisters in Islam. If they're truly your brothers and sisters in Islam, you would feel it here. You'd feel it like I do. Yeah. They don't have to be directly related to me by blood.
Of course.
Yeah. They don't have to be even from the same ethnic group. Whenever I hear about stuff like this in the across, Myanmar, in Burma, and what they did to the Rohingya Muslims,
That's right.
You don't think I'm horrified by that? You don't think that if I had it in my power, I would make those who commit these crimes suffer grievously? I'll punish them in a way that they would be so terrified to do anything like that ever again. But unfortunately, this is the qadr of Allah. I don't have the power to do this, but I still feel it in my heart. They're my brothers and sisters. I don't accept it for them. I don't accept it for myself. I don't accept it for them. So I wanted Daniel, who publicly wrote about what happened to his sister, to remind him of that pain and suffering that you felt. Imagine that pain and suffering, and then put yourself in the shoes of those who felt something like it and worse, because it wasn't just a case of a sibling who went and disappeared. They know for a fact what happened to some of these women in Syria, in Assad's prisons, in Iraq, in Maliki's prisons. Yeah, it's documented. They were raped to death sometimes. Yeah.
Haider al-Abadi. Let's not forget him, the little midget.
Haider al-Abadi was small fry compared to Maliki. Believe me. They're a
Was he?
continuation of the same thing. Yeah, Maliki was the worst of the bunch because one good thing I would say about Maliki is that he honestly hates us. Yeah, he doesn't even pretend, and that's a good thing.
That's a good thing. I'd rather
actually a
have
good
that.
thing.
Oh, an open adu.
Exactly. That's what I say about Trump. You know, I love it when Trump's in office. Yeah, not because I think he's a great guy, although sometimes he does great things with bad intention, maybe, but it happens to be of benefit to the Muslim Ummah in terms of killing Qasim Soleimani. Yeah, something else Daniel raised.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, I
Beautiful.
said Alhamdulillah. I was
Alhamdulillah.
extreme.
I
To
was,
this day,
I was
I'm
so
happy.
happy. You know, whenever I see that photo with that ring, brings me joy.
I was
Brings
saying,
me joy.
same.
Brings me
It's,
so
it's
much joy.
glorious. Same thing.
Even
when
what
it
happened,
happened
even
to
what happened to Nasrallah, I was
Hassan
over
Nasrallah,
the
exactly.
mood.
I was about to say the same thing.
Alhamdulillah.
Me too. Alhamdulillah.
Why shy away? Why shy away from that? Why shy away from that? What Hezbollah has done in Syria?
Thing.
Let's get to Syria now. What Hezbollah done in Syria?
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah,
Alhamdulillah.
of course, they deserve what happens to them. It doesn't mean that all of a sudden you're an Israeli
We support
fanboy.
Zionists, of course not.
Yeah, no, of course not. What it means is, if evil clashes with evil, I say have at it. Yeah, by all means, go
Destroy
at it.
each other.
Go at it.
Destroy each other.
Don't destroy us. Destroy each other. Yeah,
Destroy each other.
that's all I want from them.
So going back to Syria now, because I know your time. Obviously, we had a bit of a delay due to the 12th Imam, interfering with our live stream. Iranians' involvement in Syria, as you mentioned, they were there before, and post 2014 when Daesh came from Iraq, and there was the international coalition got involved. Iran was colluding with the international coalition, right?
Absolutely, not just in Syria, by the way, in Iraq as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Because this was all happening simultaneously. So, there was a really funny excerpt from. He's a famous Arab media personality called Faisal Al-Qasim.
Yeah, Al Jazeera one.
He works for Al Jazeera. That's right. Yeah, Syrian guy.
Yeah.
He had one of these Iraqi sycophants on his program, and he asked him a very difficult question. He said to him, hang on a second. He said, I just need to get this straight in my head. You call America the Great Satan, right? He was like, yeah. And he was like, okay, then this operation that you've launched against ISIS, you've called it the operation of the Great Prophet, Rasul al-A'zam. Yeah.
Rasul al-A'zam. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So he goes, I need to understand this. How does Rasul al-A'zam take air support from Al-Shaytan al-Akbar? Yeah, the Great Satan.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. It sounds better in Arabic.
Yeah.
It sounds better
in Arabic. Yeah, he goes, Shu al-Khalta al-Ajiba. Yeah. What is this strange mixture? Yeah. It's bizarre. And it's true. It's true because, again, they needed the US air support against not just ISIS, by the way. When it first kicked off, it wasn't just ISIS. And they always use this. They always use this to demonize the wider resistance against Iranian occupation. Yeah, whether it's in Iraq or Syria. The second, all of the Syrian factions are now, even the White Helmets, which are a humanitarian organization.
The one that rescue people.
Exactly. They're a civil defense group. They're unarmed. They're called the White Helmets because they wear these white safety helmets. When Assad used to bomb areas and still does, they would be the first in there to try to shift the rubble away and save as many lives as they possibly could.
Yes. That's right.
Even they are targeted as combatants because they accuse them of being Al-Qaeda.
Oh man.
Yeah. So it's the easiest thing in the world, and Daniel engaged in this.
And the funny thing is, I watch a lot of Iraqi TV. Funny enough, you'll be surprised. I do. I watch the Iraqi debates, and I remember like they were speaking about jihad and nikah, and it was just that came from the Iranian sort of propaganda, wasn't it? Jihad and nikah, and they take the slave girls and they do this and they do that. But Iraq,
which is ironic. It's ironic that you mentioned that because that's exactly what they do. They actually take when they kill and orphan these Sunni girls. Yeah, they kill their fathers, their breadwinners, and whatever, and they leave their mothers and daughters alive. They press them into prostitution, and they call it mut'a marriage.
Yeah, mut'a. Yeah,
they're mut'a marriage. And you go to anywhere, like for example in Najaf and in Karbala, and even in Iran, in Qom, for example, you go to these seminaries.
Mashhad
and you've
other
got these
areas.
guys. You've got these guys hanging around these seminaries, and they're wearing the turban, they're wearing the robes and whatever
Look the
else. They've
part.
got beards.
Look the part.
They look the part. Well, I tell you what they are. They're pimps. We call people like
Wallah.
that. A gawad in Iraqi
Iraq.
Arabic. Yeah, a pimp. They're low life, because what they do is they traffic these girls. They force them into sexual contracts of marriage. They're not marriage. We know it's not marriage. It's totally illegitimate.
Prostitution.
It's prostitution, and in this case, we're talking about 9-year-old girls. And the BBC did a documentary on this. Yeah, and they went undercover and they spoke to. And
I remember that. Yes, I remember that.
It's called Undercover with the Clerics. They went undercover with these clerics, and they
That was
exposed
in
their
Qadamiyya. That was in Qadamiyya. Qadamiyya, wasn't it? In Baghdad.
Not just that, they even went to Najaf.
Najaf
they
as
went,
well?
Yeah. So Qadamiyya is a district in Baghdad, for those of you that don't know.
Yeah.
And it's home to the shrine of Imam Musa al-Kadhim, as they call him.
As they call it,
Yeah, my ancestor, funnily enough.
There you
Yeah.
go.
So this Undercover with the Clerics exposed what they do.
What they did.
Showed how,
And this was known anyway. It just presented it to the world, to the wider world. We know about this. We knew about this all along.
Exactly.
So Syria came, and then the Iranian militias, and the Iraqi militias that went there, they got the blessing from Iran and Iraq, and then just traveled to Syria, just like that.
Just like that. Exactly. They didn't need anyone's permission. I mean, they literally just they said to them, the Iranians said to them, the IRGC handlers said to them, right, you're going to deploy in Syria next.
Syria now.
They were like, yeah, okay, no problem, we'll do that. And this is nothing new though. Like they fought even on Iran's side in the Iran-Iraq war. So we actually had Shi'i soldiers in the Iraqi army, Shi'i soldiers who fought in the army of Iraq under the command of the commander-in-chief, who was Saddam Hussein, right? And then on the Iranian side, you had these.
Allah yarhamu. Allah yarhamu.
You had Shia who were connected to the Khomeiniist regime, Iraqi Shia, who were connected to the Khomeiniist regime and ideology and believed in it, who were fighting on the Iranian side against their fellow Shia in Iraq.
And so one example is, and you'll agree with me, Hadi al-Amri, the head of the Badr organization.
Yeah.
I got a clip of him when he's young, and he said, "Nahnu ma'al imam," and he's young at that time. You can see the issues that Iran influenced policies that have resulted in destruction. And I'll say this off the cuff, and Brother Tallha would agree with me. Iran has done more damage to Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah than the Sahayana, more than the Zionist entity, by far.
100%.
By far.
It's not even a competition.
It's not even a competition. Of course, look at the last 13 years in Syria. Look at the last 10 years or 20 years in Iraq. That's 3 decades. Okay, the Zionist regime's been around since 48, but we're talking about in a short space of time. Look how much Iran has destroyed our homes, occupied our lands. Let's just say Iraq has been occupied by Iran. Syria has been occupied by Iran, and Lebanon as well, right? We could add Lebanon in that as well.
And Yemen.
And Yemen, of course, the Houthis, we forgot, because this.
And let's not forget, because I was rightfully criticized about this for not raising it in the debate. Unfortunately, I didn't have time. But the Ahwazi Arabs and the Baluchi Sunnis in Iran.
Yes.
Yeah, let's not forget their plight. Let's not forget what the Iranian regime does. No, the Baluchis are Sunnis. The Ahwazi Arabs,
I thought Ahwazis are Shi'i.
A lot of them have become Sunnah these days.
Oh,
and again, it's because they experienced this. The way that the Iranian regime weaponizes Shiism is also in the vein of Persian nationalism.
Okay.
So they experience this firsthand. They're like, "What on earth is this? Hang on a second. We're supposed to be your brothers. No, you're not. You're not our brothers. You're here to serve our interests and our purposes, and that's it. And other than that, we're going to destroy the Arabic language." And that's one of the one of the key things that they focus on. The reason why the Ahwazis feel so hard done by, and rightfully so, is that they try to destroy their culture. They try to destroy their Arab identity, and as a result of this, especially amongst the exile community, many of them, alhamdulillah, adopted Sunni Orthodox true Islam. And even those in Iran as well, many of them have adopted Islam as well.
And just going back to the debate now, because obviously we spoke about the geopolitics, which you didn't have the time to do, and alhamdulillah, this has been engaging and educational and enlightening for many of us, even myself included. What do you think? And let's just let me present this in a way where I'm being as fair as possible. Daniel's position, what do you think it stems from? Is it Iranian nationalism? Is it because he does believe that Iran is engaging against the Zionist enemy, and us holding hands with them will hopefully, put us in a better position of strength against the Zionist regime? What do you think it is? What was your thoughts? Because you've engaged with him in that.
Before I did give him the benefit of the doubt. So last year, and this may not be known to many people, but I actually approached him, and he had a squabble with one of my friends who's a Syrian. And at the time, me and him were on fairly decent terms.
Okay.
We weren't friends or anything like that, but we were on good terms, friendly, polite, say salam to one another, exchange messages with one another.
Okay.
Yeah, so there was some kind of a relationship, even if we weren't, quote unquote friends. So
Civil,
I said to him,
civil.
more than civil.
Okay,
There was
interesting.
there was a level of warmth there, I would say,
Alhamdulillah.
particularly from me anyway.
Okay.
And if he denies that, by the way, I have receipts. So
No, let's leave the receipts for today.
yeah. So so I gave him the benefit of the doubt, and I approached him. They squabbled about this is him with my Syrian friend. They squabbled about the Syrian issue and the Iranian actions in Syria. And I thought to myself, well, why don't we just have a discussion?
The Roman Arab, brother Damascus pods. Is that him?
Yes, Abdullah al-Rabat.
Yeah, Abdullah Rabat. Yeah. I know him.
MashaAllah alayh, he's one of my most beloved brothers.
Yeah. Even though
So-
me and him, obviously, we haven't spoken in a while, I've got a lot of respect and admiration for that brother. He writes beautiful books, and he is someone that should be followed, and he doesn't get enough attention. Even though we've had our issues in the past, but you have to be just to even those you have a friendly disagreement.
Of course.
With. So yeah, let's get that out there. Yeah. So you were saying, Habib.
Yeah, so I was saying, so
You were mentioning about
I tried to arrange a discussion with him. So I said to Daniel, look, Abdullah's my friend. I know him well. He's a good brother. I don't like to see this kind of back and forth between you guys. And for the record, I agree with Abdullah's position, just so that I'm upfront with it. I don't think Iran is a good actor. And I said, why don't we have this discussion? I said, and he immediately
privately or publicly? Privately.
No, I said let's do it in public
Privately
because I wanted people to benefit.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's I thought at the time that we were on good enough terms that we could have a civil discussion, not a debate. Immediately though, his mind went to debate.
Yeah, debate mode.
Debate mode, and he said, "Oh, we need to have a moderator. It needs to be timed." I said to him, "Akhi, what are you talking about? Let's just sit down. We have a discussion." Yeah. And I said, if you want, even I will moderate it. You know my position already, but I won't get involved. I'll just make sure that things stay civil between you and brother Abdullah. And he was like, no, because you're not impartial, whatever. I said to him, bro, this is not a debate. It's a discussion. We're just going to present. And I said, maybe I'll learn something from you. Maybe you'll learn something from me. So on and so forth. And he kept putting hurdle after hurdle after hurdle. And then in the end, he quoted someone called Bassam al-Zawadi, who's based in the United States, I believe.
Yeah, I know him.
Yeah. And basically he stated Bassam al-Zawadi's position, which is more or less our position. So I said to him, okay, there's no point of having this discussion then.
Yeah.
And he said, no, we've clearly got significant divides between us and whatever. I said to him, no, I don't think so. But anyway, long story short, I gave him the benefit of the doubt, and he ducked out of the discussion, and it's clear why he ducked out, because over time, as he became more and more pro-Iranian, openly pro-Iranian, supporting Hezbollah, supporting the so-called axis of resistance led by Iran, don't
make me vomit, please.
Exactly. And incidentally, by the way, now that Daniel is calling me a Zionist, he's actually calling me a Zionist. In his PowerPoint slide in the debate, he said that I defend Zionists and I defend Zionism. Yeah.
How?
Like the guy, well, Good question. I don't know. But a few months ago, when the Zionists were trying to cancel him from Twitter, I don't know if you remember this.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, I tweeted in support of him, and he quote tweeted me, and he said, Jazakallah khairan, akhi Tallha, because I defended him against the Zionists who were trying to cancel him. Right?
Okay, there you go.
That
Brotherhood.
tweet is there. That tweet is there. And again, the reason why I defended him is because of the concept of al-wala wal-bara.
Aywa.
And I made it clear. I disagree with Daniel, very strongly when it comes to Iran, but I'm not willing to sit back and stay quiet while just because he's criticizing extremist Jews, they're making it out that he's criticizing all Jews. I said this is not acceptable. So I defended him in public. And then subhanAllah, this is again one of the signs of a munafiq is when he has a problem with someone, he engages in fujur. Yeah. Which means that he goes to extreme
vulgarness
levels. Not just vulgarness. It goes beyond that, because it's a case of him overflowing and going well beyond what is considered to be a rational, normal response. Even if you've got disagreements with me, you're going to come out and call me a Zionist? You're going to come out and insinuate that I'm some sort of, and then he's, what about? I did a short video mocking this. What about the Saudis? What about the Emiratis? What about this?
They're tyrants, deviants, and I got no issues in saying
if someone's done something bad, I am well known for criticizing it. It's not like I've ever been quiet on anyone.
So let me press you then. What's your position on these rulers then? Because I know people might think you're an Arab nationalist, so let's clear the air. Emirat, with their involvement in various Muslim issues, or more notably Sudan and Libya, and their issues with the Abraham Accords and allying with Israel. What's your thoughts on these Gulf rulers?
Well, my view on it is quite simple. And again, like, I don't take a black and white view on everything. That this is the way. My problem with some people is that if someone does something bad, it means that they're, that's it. You just totally write them off, and you can't find anything praiseworthy in them. For example, I've got issues with the Saudi government and the way it's been liberalizing. And I was one of the first people when they started building that weird golden cube, saying, what is this? Is this some kind of like inversion of the Kaaba? What's going on here? Yeah, it's something is clearly wrong. And then you've got, for example, like Nicki Minaj and J-Lo and all of these other skanks in the land of the Ba'tha.
Haramain. Yeah, you are.
Yeah, in the land of the Ba'tha of the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, where his noble sandals were stepping.
Exactly. Out of the wahi.
You've got these, disgusting, prostitutes, and they're low lives basically. They're not people that are.
And all it is because they're coming for this. They don't care about the Saudi. They just come because they're getting a massive paycheck. That's what it is.
Exactly. So and when it comes to the Emiratis, for example, I wrote an article on the Abraham Accords, so-called Abraham Accords.
So cool.
Yeah, and I criticized it because I was like, the excuse that they gave was, if we engage in this, we'll be in a position to diplomatically lobby for the Palestinians, so we can restrain Israel's excesses. So I remember at the time, not long after the Abraham Accords, there was again more Israeli massacres, more crimes against the Palestinians, more. And I said,
they violated Aqsa during Ramadan, and
exactly. Well, that was actually what triggered it, because I said, how's that Abraham Accords working out for you? Are you able to influence them? Are you able to influence them? And then someone came out, I can't remember his name now, but there's another one of these YouTubers, and he said, oh, this is another reason behind it is the economic conquest of Israel. Like, who are you trying to fool? Who are you trying to fool? Don't be silly. Yeah. So I've made my stance clear in numerous articles.
Okay. So I don't want to get that idea, because I wanted to press you, because people are naturally going to say, look, this issue, Tallha's very critical against Iran, but he never criticizes the Arab regime. So I emphasize on the Gulf, Khalij.
What's funny, by the way, is I also criticize the Khalij, regimes, that is, for actually aiding and abetting Iranian plans in Iraq.
Yeah.
Like, people are they're not too familiar with this, but the Saudi government, for example, gave millions of dollars to Muqtada Sadr, thinking that they could
I did a
basically
video on that.
influence him
They sent
and
him
peel him away.
they sent him 4x4s as well in Najaf Airport. They had to
They,
close the
they,
airport.
they gave him so much stuff, and then
So much.
a few months after that, he went to Iran
Yeah.
for the it was the anniversary of the revolution, and you could see him sat at
Yeah.
the feet of Khamenei, and I was like,
Oh, look at that.
you really thought that you could peel him away from Iranian influence? This guy who was literally raised by them, yeah. So I have many criticisms of them, but
Okay.
even though
You have the receipts.
let,
You have the receipts first. I want to know.
I
You got
have
the receipts?
many receipts, many.
Perfect.
But let's make one thing clear though. Whatever the Saudis and Emiratis have done pales in comparison to what Iran has done. Let's be very unequivocal about that. Because you don't see, for example, there's no Saudi occupation force somewhere in some other Muslim country and setting up checkpoints and murdering them based on their identity. Where's that occurred? Yeah. Again, it's not saying that they're innocent. And I encourage your viewers to stop looking at the world in black and white terms. It's not a case of someone's pure good or pure evil. The world doesn't work that way. I'm sorry to break it to some people, but we have to be grown-ups in a grown-up world, yeah? And that means understanding that there's a spectrum of bad, there's a spectrum of good, yeah? You could be somewhere in between, even on an individual level. People make mistakes and whatever. People are just wantonly evil. Some people are, you have the awliya of Allah, for example, who are on this end of the good scale, yeah? Nothing is black and white though, and when you're looking at politics, it's even murkier. It's even more.
100%. It's very murky.
Yeah. So whatever Saudi has done pales in
Yemen.
comparison to what Iran has done. Yeah, in Yemen, there's no two ways about it. The starvation that happened in Yemen, the malnutrition, the deaths of illness and disease. This stuff is horrific and could have been easily avoided. But the Saudis decided to press on. By the way, I wasn't against a military intervention against the Houthis. That's not what I'm critical of. I'm critical of the way they intervened because it led to so much unnecessary death and suffering. It didn't need to be that way at all. But they chose that path, and they were stubborn on that path. And in the end, they had to, in my view, withdraw in a humiliating fashion.
Okay. So just moving on, and I just want to make one more point before I let you go. It's been lengthy, longer than originally planned, but Tallha, so we'll bring it to a close. Khomeini now, because I got his book here, because there was a part in the debate where Khomeini was mentioned. I think it was by Brother Wissam. And another thing I have to add as well, that Brother Wissam's English isn't the best. Let's be frank, right?
No,
so he didn't articulate himself very well. And on top of that, he had some problematic tweets. Let's get that wrong. If you take it without the context, but I don't agree with a lot of these positions. And again, the spectrum that he follows probably is why. So I got here Arba'un Hadithan by Khomeini. Oh, Khomeini, should I say? So in his chapter, so in his and this is his book, by the way. This is from the this is from Iran. I got this from Iran, believe it or not. So he mentions about Imama. I'm just showing you how they perceive us. Because remember, he was saying Khomeini, the latest Shia, it doesn't account anymore. It doesn't, because they've changed. He mentioned that point. I'm going to raise a point now to show you the Saduqs and the Mufids and the Hur al-Amali and the Tusis and all. Khomeini is no different. Khomeini is no different. He mentioned there that ومن المعلوم أن هذا الأمر. So this Amr here is talking about wilaya. That it's not just regarding the Shia of the Ahl al-Bayt, and it's haram for everyone else. So what he's trying to say, it's inclusive, right? This wilaya. He says, an iman in لأن العمل لا يحصل إلا بواسط ولاية علي. So this wasit, you gotta have this intermediary of Ali, and his awsiya من المعصومين الطاهرين بل لا يقبل الإيمان بالله ورسوله من دون الولاية. Look at that. Do you want to translate? You want to translate that? لا يقبل.
You're cutting up, bro.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah, now I can hear you. Yeah.
بل لا يقبل الإيمان بالله ورسوله من دون الولاية.
So you basically, your iman, your faith in Allah and His Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is not accepted without you having faith in
wilaya.
the wilaya. Yeah, it's
And
kufr.
this, and
Kufr.
this is Khomeini's book. So, Brother Daniel, when you say the later Shia, it doesn't apply, please. This I've got his book right here, Khomeini's book. What more do you want from me? What more? His quote. This is Shiism. This is the Shiism of the previous scholars. So to change that and to defend them, it's very poor. It's very poor. Honestly, I expected better from Brother Daniel, but ultimately, I'll conclude now. Bi-idhnillah al-Kareem, Brother Daniel Tallha, may Allah reward you for your work. It was insightful. And I know brothers have been tuning in. We've had almost 100 people watching. Because look, ultimately, it's about educating yourself and not being fooled by Shia rhetoric and emotive arguments. And the Shia alliance, or the so-called axis of resistance, is just a facade. I'm sorry, it's a facade. And not to say I agree with Brother Talha in everything. Don't get me wrong. It's human nature. But we agree.
Watch yourself. Watch yourself.
Sorry.
I'm joking, brother.
But we agree on the fundamentals. We agree. Geopolitics is murky, like Brother Talha has said. It's messy. No one really knows exactly what's going on unless you're in government, unless you're involved, directly or intimately. So just to summarize, we cannot accept anyone that's promoting, especially anyone with a huge following, especially alliance with Iran, considering the crimes that they've committed over the past 25
just
years.
to conclude this, Akhi. The question of whether they are kuffar or not is actually irrelevant to the point of allying with them, because they could be kuffar, and there are fiqh positions that says that you can ally with kuffar in certain circumstances.
Right.
It's the question is irrelevant, and I made this very clear in the beginning of my presentation. And I quoted the Al-Qudduri and I quoted the Maliki position from Al-Qayrawani, the so-called Little Malik.
Qudduri, Hanafi.
Al-Qudduri al-Hanafi, exactly. So I quoted these. Why? To make it clear that if Iran, for example, was a totally peaceful nation towards us, was not killing us, was not raping us, was not, and it suddenly came up to us one day and said, you know what? We're sick and tired of what's going on in Palestine, and we want to assist you in stopping a genocide against the Palestinian people. We're willing to provide you with whatever. We're willing to even provide men, peacekeepers, weapons, money, whatever. Sure, no problem. The reality, though, is the opposite. And this is worth bearing in mind. They ethnically cleansed the Palestinian community in Iraq. 34,000 Palestinians reduced to almost nothing today. And they recently passed a law, this is very recent, by the way, within the past week, where the Palestinians are not even allowed to work as taxi drivers. Whereas in the days of Saddam Hussein, in Iraq. In Iraq. So they ethnically cleansed them in Iraq. And bearing in mind, in Saddam's days, they had the exact same rights as Iraqis. The exact same rights. The only thing that they were denied is Iraqi nationality, and that was to prevent the Israelis from saying, "Oh, well, they're actually Iraqis."
Oh, so to strip them from the land.
Yeah. No,
Okay,
you're Palestinians, but you're allowed every right: free education, free healthcare, working in any sector, including the military. By the way, you have Palestinian officers of the Iraqi army. Is he going to call them Ba'athist slaves? And these guys actually fought, by the way, in Lebanon. So they were deployed latterly into Lebanon.
Wow.
In 1982. They fought with distinction. And they fought against Iran, something he doesn't like.
So to conclude, Brother Talha, I'll allow you to end this live stream. Any words, any advice to our viewers regarding the topic at hand? And do you have any messages to our brother Daniel, or message to our brother Daniel to conclude?
I said what I need to say to Daniel. I'm not going to say anything more than that. I've made my points clear. The only way, like I said, he couldn't fight me on the facts, so he decided to mudsling and try to character assassinate me. Anyone who watches that debate will see that he absolutely got his rear end handed to him. And it's because he engaged with a scholar of the field. It's not a case of, one dimwit versus another. And the only reason why I engaged him was because of his tabligh, because he was misguiding people. That was the only reason why I engaged him, not because I thought he was my equal. Not in this topic, not in this world, not in this life. But what I encourage, your viewers, inshallah ta'ala, is to, first of all, not forget the innocent victims of Iran, whether it's in Baluchistan or Ahwaz or Iraq or Syria or Lebanon or Yemen or elsewhere. Don't forget them from your dua. That's the first thing. And don't forget the victims of any oppressor from your dua, irrespective of who they are. They don't have to be Iranians. There are many oppressors in the world. Let's not forget the Uyghurs in China, for example, the Rohingya under the Burmese government.
Yes.
Yeah.
Kashmir.
Kashmir, of course. Kashmir is a long-standing issue, and it needs resolution, and it can only be resolved by us engaging in politics in an intelligent fashion. Don't be drawn in by these emotive, ridiculous arguments that, oh no, we're really brothers and sisters in Islam. Why don't we just shake hands and carry? No, we can't do that with people that are currently killing us, currently murdering us, currently waging war against us, and trying to engage in sectarian cleansing campaigns. And indeed, in Damascus today, you will find communities of Hazara Afghan Shia and Pakistani Shia in areas and neighborhoods that were once inhabited by Syrian Sunni Arabs. You tell me, are they allies?
Yeah.
Not in my book.
Not in my book either. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, accept our efforts. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make our keep our intentions clean and sincere. And may Allah guide us, and may Allah aid the resistance, whatever they are, in order to stop oppression and to raise the plight of the ummah, and to obviously manifest the deen of Islam. Allahumma ameen. So, Brother Tallha, once again, Allah yubarik feek. I'll end this stream. And anyone that hasn't, please subscribe to the War Journal, which is Dr. Tallha's YouTube channel, and subscribe and to follow him on Twitter. You're not on Instagram, are you?
I actually am.
Are you? I tried to tag you, but I couldn't find you.
So it's at the.war.journal.
There you go. There you go. Heard it from Brother Tallha himself, and then also myself, Bro Hajji. If you haven't obviously followed me, you could just check out my YouTube channel. It's quite academic. You won't find reaction videos. Brother Tallha would agree. It's not. You won't find the P Diddy controversy or anything else similar to that. It will be more academic. I don't talk about geopolitics especially if I have experts, and I'll obviously listen attentively. So take care of yourselves, and inshallah, share this particular stream with all your followers, and I hope you benefited. And bi'idhnillah al-kareem, we hope to see you soon on this channel, and also on the War channel as well, the War Journal, should I say. So take care. Wa sallallahu ala nabiyyina Muhammad.